On today's video, we're going to remove my Fox 2.5-inch front coilovers, have a local 4x4 shop swap out the bottom spring seat for this taller, more tapered version, and hopefully solve the issue of my Banjo bolts coming in contact with my lower shock mounts. Coming up.
A bad day.
Yeah! Hey, I'm Drew and this is Evergreen Overland. On this channel we do reviews on camping and overland gear, we hone our outdoor cooking skills and techniques, and we showcase 4x4 and off-road vehicle modifications like the one we're going to do today. So recently when I dove into doing a little bit of my own brake work, I came across a little bit of marking on my Fox 2.5-inch coilovers at the base of the spring seat, as well as the first coil of the spring itself. It wasn't drastic by any means, but it was something I wanted to keep an eye on. I thought that my recent brake upgrades with the new Banjo bolts, extended brake lines, new calipers could possibly help the situation, but it's kind of compounded it and made it a little bit worse. And honestly, it's just unsafe at this point to not address the problem. Looking around in the first gen groups I'm a part of, as well as just different forums, I found multiple people who had the same experience, and it looks like the solve is actually replacing the lower spring seat with a taller, more tapered version of the seat right here that you actually find on the Fox 2.5-inch coilovers for 05 Tacomas. I reached out to Fox, kind of explained the situation to them. They were aware that it's happening in certain situations, and I work with them to get me a pair of replacements to swap it out, but now I got to do the work to swap it all over. Show you guys really quickly where it's coming in contact at a little bit better of an angle. So basically my Banjo bolt right here is coming in contact with the lower spring seat right here, and it's dragging up and cutting into that aluminum. I'm not too concerned about the coilovers, but more so the effect that it could have on my brakes, and God forbid those brakes failing in a position that could be catastrophic. I'm gonna jack the truck up and start on removing these coilovers so I can have a local shop swap out that bottom spring seat, and hopefully it will solve the issue for me. All right, I'm gonna go around and quickly hit the bolts I'm gonna be taking out with some PB blast, some penetrating blast. There are 3 14mm bolts around the top of the spring mount here, and then one 19mm bolt down at the base. You start by removing the top. You can get the top outer two with a ratchet. The only one that's kind of tricky to get to is the back of the 3, but you can reach it with a regular wrench. So I'm just loosening those for now. I don't really know why, but at least seems like we put this on backwards when we put it in here, so my nut is actually on the wrong side, but we'll make it work. Harbor Freight braking bars. Well, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that with the equipment I have, or at least I don't think I'm going to try. A while ago, I swapped out my 600-pound springs with 700-pound springs, and I paid a local shop to do it. Put the lower shock bolt in the wrong way on reinstallation, so there's no way for me to get to that nut with any tools I have. All right, well, I kind of forgot I had air tools. I haven't used them in a very long time, but I do have an impact gun, and I'm going to try it out. Here's the situation we find ourselves in. My impact gun is not working. Can't do anything to get a better angle on the CV. And even a better angle on the CV isn't really giving me any leverage to the backside of where the nut's at. Went and talked to the shop that put on my 700-pound springs, and they recommended that I jack the thing up and just try to snap the bolt. So we're gonna give that a shot right now. Okay, that is turning. I don't know if it's shearing, but it is turning, so that makes me feel a little bit better. Thank God this is coming loose. I'll show you guys what I did. Okay, so right in here on the back side of this bolt, I have a wrench on the nut, and it's going towards the inside, towards the engine bay right there. And then on this side, I've just got the big ass breaker bar, and you can kind of see that wrench on the other side through there. All right, I'm gonna pause really quick, loosen up the top 3 14mm bolts on the top of the shock mount, and then continue the process of taking out the bottom bolt, and you guys can watch the process. 1, 2, to get to because it's kind of far back there. I do want to stop a second and say this is pretty cool. I just bought this from Home Depot. It's a Husky collapsible, or rather extendable breaker bar, 1/2-inch breaker bar. I broke the cheap ass Harbor Freight one yesterday and figured I'd buy something with at least a little bit more perceived value. This collapses down small enough to fit into my to-go tool bag that I bring out on the trail with me, and then it extends to give you 24 inches of breaker bar power. So I am honestly pretty stoked with that find. The little bastard is free and we didn't even break the bolt off. All right, hopefully I can get punched behind here. Careful of your axle. And the whole thing slides right out. There we go. I got it out of there. Got to get over the passenger side, take that one out next. Then I'll probably clean them up a little bit and drop these by the shop tomorrow. So there's a close-up on the damage that we're seeing there on both of these. That's the driver's side. This is the passenger side that seems to be coming in contact. Probably about the same on either side. One thing to note is I believe that the long side of this spring race needs to be going towards the back of the vehicle on whatever side you put it at. So if you take a look, here is the new spring seat that'll get installed on these. Much more tapered, much taller, and roughly next to the old one. You can really see the difference. I'm really optimistic that this is going to solve my problem. I'm going to bring these into the shop tomorrow. They said it shouldn't take all that long for them to make the swap. That'll get them back on the truck hopefully the next night, and then we can kind of cycle the suspension and see if that solved my issue. Fingers crossed. So I dropped my coilovers off at TourFab in Everett, Washington. They're a great group of guys who specialize in Toyota Land Cruisers, but they do some other stuff as well if you ask them. They were able to find some time to swap over the lower spring seats, and there we go. They also tried to adjust the preload up here to compensate for the taller spring seat down here as much as they could. The reality is I'm gonna have to adjust ride height on this thing once I get these reinstalled. I can show you guys how I do that. I don't know if it's the right way to do it, but I'll give you guys some pointers along the way. Quite a bit shorter than these guys, and I'm really hoping that this fixes the issue. I got one of my 14 millimeters for the top end. I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get this to thread in where I need it to. Two of the others, put those in. Now I'm a little conflicted at what direction to put these in. I'm gonna go ahead and put them in the way that TourFab did when they replaced my spring before, just because I have a little bit better of an angle on them this way. And when I was at the shop the other day, they looked it up, and I think this is the way the service manual says to do it. Cool. Got the washer on the back. Get the nut on that. Looked up the Fox install instructions and printed those out for these struts, and it's saying 24 foot-pounds on these top bolts, and factory is showing 47. So this is going into an aluminum top right here. I'm guessing that's why it's a lower torque value on there. I'm going to torque it kind of in the middle, 27 foot-pounds there. And then I'm just gonna paint mark these with a pen so I can watch them over time and make sure they're not backing out. Okay, so this bottom guy needs to get torqued to 100 foot-pounds. Gives me the excuse to break out my brand new larger torque value torque wrench. Set to 100. Steady the wrench on the other side and torque this guy down. Again, I'm gonna paint mark this so I know if it's backing out or not, but other than that, just keep an eye on it. All right, this is gonna be the test at first droop. Turn this guy all the way to the right. All right, at full lock, I can see it from where I'm turning. I'm hitting the bottom of that, but I don't know with the wheel on if I will be, if that wheel might limit me, being that it might connect somewhere in here before I even get close to that. So I'm gonna keep pushing forward, go do the other side now, and then get this thing back on its tires and do some adjusting and measuring and taking a look at if we're coming in contact still, so. I'm gonna get the truck put down on its own weight. We're gonna roll it back and forth to let those springs settle a little bit, which is what you have to do to get the true ride height, and then see where it's sitting ride height wise from front to back to see if I need to adjust the coilover preload. Gives me the opportunity to roll out my Noco battery jump box here. So I'm going to go ahead and pump these tires up to make sure they're all at the exact same PSI. All right, in the front here we can see that it's not quite level in the front, but really not that far off. Starting with this side, measuring from right in the center of the wheel hub on the ground all the way to the bottom side of the fender. We got 37 1/8. We got 36 and probably a half. Driver's side, we got 37 1/2. We got 38 1/4. The driver's side is probably 1/4 of an inch plus lower than the passenger side, so I'm going to raise that up a little bit more, but I'm going to torque down my lug nuts so I don't forget. Then I'm going to put this thing back up on jack stand so that the suspension can droop out, and we're going to adjust the preload on the Fox coilovers with the Fox adjuster tool. Now, in starting to do this, I realized it probably made more sense to take my measurement from the center of the wheel well to the base of the fender here, but I'm already lifted up, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue. So this is a 3/16 little screw here to adjust, and you just want to loosen that up barely enough so that this whole thing will turn. And from what Fox says, I think 4 turns is equal to about a 1/2 inch. Going clockwise, like we said, is going to push this down and extend your preload. All right, so that right there, I think we're gonna leave it there, put it down, go adjust the other side. Maybe I'll go up 3 full turns on the other side because this side needs to go up a little higher, go back and forth. One thing is you don't wanna overextend the preload on these things. I'll probably wanna look up that information on the Fox website, but being that I have changed out the bottom spring seat to one that's significantly taller, I need to figure out what the difference is between the tallness of the 2 different spring seats, the original and the aftermarket one now, and kind of do the math on that to figure out what my maximum preload can be without, you know, destroying these shocks or binding the coils. So just make sure you don't forget to tighten down this set screw. I'm not sure what the torque rating would be on it. If you want to know, you're going to have to look it up for yourself. That's really unfortunate. I'm going to have to take this whole side off completely, including the coilover, because I can't get to the hex set screw on the top of it. It's around the back side. So just make sure when you're putting these in that you remember to do that. Well, that went a lot faster. Okay, that should be loosened up. We should be able to adjust the preload on this. 15/16 on there right now, almost an inch. So it's about the same as the other side when we started there. So let's go ahead and go around 3 times here. $37 3/4 on this side. I'm spot on level side to side. That is pretty close, within like a 1/16. 88 and 3/16. The dog is hardly ever off leash where she could bolt, so. Come on, treat. Did you go see what's going on over at the neighbors? Is that what you did? Are you mischievous? Well, we're exactly level side to side, and I think we're pretty damn good front and back, especially once I get a little bit of a load in it. If it is a little front heavy, I'll probably go back through and reset that and back it off a little bit, but I think it's going to be good once we get it on a flat surface because the driveway is sloped. My next step is really just to kind of see if I have the clearance with these new lower spring seats to miss my Banjo bolt. Hopefully the video footage will catch that. Doesn't seem to be coming in contact at full lock, so let's go ahead and check the other side. That one doesn't seem to be hitting either. That's looking promising. I'm going to go ahead and take this thing for a quick spin and I'll be back. Back from my test drive, the truck seems to be sitting pretty dang level. Let's take a look at that real quick. So yeah, overall, I think that's sitting pretty dang level. Probably a little bit of a lift in the back, and that's good because it's not loaded down with camping gear and all that kind of stuff right now. On my test drive, I took it around the roads on my house and took some corners, you know, really sharp as I could. Speeding up, slowing down, trying to get the suspension to cycle up and down as I went through those corners. And let's jump underneath and see if we had any contact with the Banjo bolt and the bottom spring seat. So I got as much light as I can under here right now, and I'm super pleased to see that I see no contact in any place on here where it would connect with the Banjo bolt. So the driver's side looks good to me. Let's go take a look at the passenger side. There's nothing there. Those definitely clearance up quite a bit higher, and those swapped out bottom spring seats, at least at first glance, driving around the road fairly aggressively, seem to have done the trick. So the next real test is going to be, you know, taking it off road and cycling that suspension and kind of putting it through its paces just to see if there's anything that at its extremes comes in contact. I'm pretty optimistic. It's looking really, really good. Well, there you go. We, for the most part, have a resolution to this. Hopefully this video was helpful for you if you're experiencing kind of the same issue I was with the lower spring seat on these coilovers, as well as a quick tutorial on how to swap out coilovers of a similar height and fit. Aside from just the general tools that you need to have, a good socket set, a good wrench set, I would also highly encourage that you have a good, decent-sized breaker bar and some sort of pry bar to accomplish this job. I appreciate you guys watching this video. Hit the like button below to let me know I've done a good job. You can hit that subscribe button to be notified every week when I put out a new video. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, go ahead and throw them in the comments section below. I love interacting with you guys and kind of building out this community. I'm going to throw in the description section everything I use to accomplish this, and maybe a couple of links over to the Fox page and all that kind of stuff for the piece you might need if you're dealing with this issue with the coilovers. Definitely, if you want to follow me over on Instagram, I'm at Evergreen Overland. I use that for kind of the day-to-day, daily grind, things behind the scenes a little bit, as well as hoping to improve my photography skills down the road. And then I also have evergreenoverland.com, the site that I'm trying to kind of build out. Let me know what you guys would like to see on that website in an email or whatever it is. My email is drew@evergreenoverland.com or evergreenoverland@gmail.com. I encourage you guys to get out there and learn some stuff about your own vehicle and maybe take on some of these type of jobs for yourself, just to familiarize yourself with your rig. You're going to be off-road. You never know when those skills are going to be coming in handy. If you're out exploring and something breaks, you're going to be the only person there to fix it, so you might as well know how to do it. If you want to take a look at the video about me doing my brake system, you'll see it up here somewhere. Other than that, have a good day.